Welcome, Dominique.
Good morning, everybody. So I will start the presentation in a few minutes. So good morning, everybody. I would like to talk about my story around quilting. I became a quilter because of a rainbow trout. It's true. And of the fly fisherman that loves to go fishing. We had the chance a few years ago to have a month vacation, and we're camper enthusiasts and we love to play outside. And he said, during that month, I'm going to go fishing from morning to night. What do you wish to do? And at that time, life was very fast and I wished I could sew more. So Stefan installed me with two solar panels on our little trailer, and he took an old iron and had concrete, refracting concrete from fireplaces and nails, and he closed that. That makes the best iron I ever had. I have two thermometers. I use my gas oven to heat it, and the old-fashioned way of a spray for humidity. And I sew outside, and it's wonderful. But at that time, I don't know yet about quilting. And we're in Montana, in the Rockies. For me, it's Disneyland. Okay, it's the best place on earth for me who loves to hike and be outside. And we come upon quilting in the country, a small quilt shop in near Bozeman, Montana, on our way to Yellowstone. And I entered that quilt shop and I see my first landscape. And for me, it's my brain just changed that day. It was a very special moment. It was September 25th, 2005. So I bought a book, a few basic equipment, a mat, a ruler, and a roller cutter. And I go back to my camper, and I'm sure that I will finish that in a few days. So I made this very small quilt. And no, that was my first humble moment with quilting. It's a long process. So it took more than my vacation to finish it. But the fun I had with my first pinwheel, and I didn't know that you could use a pattern. I just didn't know. I was alone in my camper and having fun. So I designed my first pattern, assembled the thing. It's very basic, and I mixed prints and blocks, and that doesn't make sense, but it was fun. So I'm back home, and still in the book I bought, and challenged me to practice with points and other blocks. So I designed another quilt, and I'm using flannel because I love the texture. I didn't know at that time that flannel was a bit more challenging to use, but I don't know. So that's just fun. And then Christmas arrived, and I'm a chocolate maker, and I'm very busy in the fall season. But when the Christmas is past, and I have a few days of holiday, so I use my workshop. I clean everything. I use my workshop and Christmas paper, and I unroll that, and I start drawing my first quilt, a landscape quilt that I dreamed to do. And my husband came into the workshop and said, "You know how to draw?" I said, "No, but I have to do that." So I'm designing that, and I'm in love with kaleidoscope. So I invent a pattern of nature coming down with the river, and you may have seen it. It was at the Courtepointe, Quebec show in 2008 in Montreal. And I go to my first quilt show in 2006. And I meet my first guild, Argenteuil. So I'm part of a guild now. I know more quilters, and I'm very happy to know them. And I learn about paper piecing. So I give myself a challenge of designing my first paper piecing pattern with this one. And I said that if I design that, if I can sew what I've drawn, maybe I'm going to be very free to do whatever I want. So I go back to the fun we have in vacation, and I mix applique and paper piecing. So this paper piecing permits me to bring this, enlarge it, and up to the end, and even to the border. Okay, it may be only me who sees that, but I'm happy to play with that. And I add a few leaves. This piece I will bring to Vermont Quilt Festival in 2006, and I will be hang with the kids quilt, and they will say, you know, the little leaf around the frame, maybe that's something you should not plan to do more. Okay, that was my first judgment, but I had fun, and people liked the piece. So I continued to quilt, and my daughter, she's just out of fashion design, and I want to impress her. So she's very romantic, and I decide to create a lady by the window. And for me, it's going to be a quilt like the one I did before, so a 2D quilt. But the quilt keeps popping up, so I need to address that at one point. I don't know how, so I decide to build a mock-up scale paper model and see where it will bring me. And I'm fascinated by the light and the shadow. So I was hooked. About with that time, I was hooked. So I finished the piece, and I see that I have many angles that I can work with. And even though I don't have grandkids yet, I know that I may have some later. So I create the first point of view they will have. So I had boots and a petticoat to for them to have something interested seeing from below, because they're so small. And it's been challenging, and I was very surprised. I presented that piece to Quebec, Courtepointe, Quebec in 2008, and won first prize in fiber art. And that was a first for me. That was very surprising. But I also prepare another piece because there was a humoristic challenge. And after working so hard on the face of Lady Gabby, the piece you just saw, I was very happy one day, and I just raised my hand and I saw the image of the super quilter. So I study how superhero were made, and I kind of create a drawing that would fit, and I created the super quilter. You may have seen it. It was at Montreal too, and won second place for the humoristic challenge. And I was very happy. This piece became my logo for a few years. Then I had the chance to go back to Montana. It was a huge quilt show, and I made this the quilting in the country 15 quilt show to honor that very special show that they brought every year. It was a quilt show outside. At the morning, 75 people were just brought in the the outdoor of the this quilt shop, and they hang the quilt in the surrounding, and 6,000 people come in one day to see that show. It was something that I've never seen before, and I never saw after. It was very, very special. So it was a great experience. After the Montreal show, I spent a lot of time on the floor of the show, seeing, and with the Montana experience, I saw how people were very moved by quilt, and I was looking for a way to bring them inside the quilt. Well, I didn't do exactly that, but when I came up with I opened a pop-up book and I saw all the structure. So I have to say that I bought two books. I dismantled one, sorry, to see how it worked. I needed a technique, and I kept very carefully the other one. And I created my design. This is precisely 1/6 of the real size of the piece. And when my husband Stefan saw that he said, okay, that's going to be a long time, and that may be expensive. You need to prove to me that it will work. So during the Christmas break, again, I enlarged all the patterns of the small design to full scale and created the full size maquette, which was a game changer, because when you create very large models, it's only at the end that you will see the whole effect. And I was working with the golden rectangle, which means that approximately, if you have 100% in one way, you use 60% in the other way, and that's the way that the eyes will appreciate more the size of your piece. So I did 10 by 6, and it was too wide. Because of the 3D, I needed to broaden it back to 8 feet, which I would have discovered only at the end of the 2 years if I didn't have made the full scale model. So I started to work on the back of the quilt. It took me 6 months because I wanted this quilt to be approached by the back and then going around and discover the other side. So a traditional side and a fiber art side 3D. And it was difficult to show it this way in many places, but near New York, Katona Museum presented it that way. It was a full room with a large exhibition of Beyond the Bed. So it was from the first quilt in history to my quilt was the last one, was the beyond part. So it was in the middle of a room. You approach it as a traditional quilt and you walked around and you discover the other side. And you may have seen it in Montreal. This quilt is the one I've much known for, and it's been traveling and being showed in many museums. But this quilt had to be, it was finished, and 3 days after it was folded down and packed. So creating large installation like that means that at the beginning you need to understand how it will be uh, unfold, fold and pack. So this, like a pop-up book, you remove a few parts and it will fold on itself and fit in a bicycle box. Then my son turned 25 and he's not about quilting at all, but he's in reenactment of medieval scenes. So he told me, you know, Mom, gambizons are the first quilting element that's been known in history. It's the undercoat of I want to say the metal grid that they have on top of it to protect them for in battle. So I created with his coaching, I created his gambizon, and he wore it. He wore it a lot during his reenactment. We're back to vacation, and thanks to Courtepointe in Montreal, in Laval, I'm teaching. So I'm during the vacation, I'm making quilt for my classes that I will teach coming back from vacation. I'm still playing outside and having fun. And I'm inspired by nature. Our vacation are in the fall, so and in the mountains. So for me, it's not the beach. It's going to the mountain hiking and often with the snow. And the picture of the dragonfly is about the fragility, reminds me of the fragility and beauty of life. She was flying during the day, but then the snow came and it was too cold for her, so she fell in the snow. I decided to take my first quilting class. It was time. I was teaching quilting, but I never was present in a traditional quilting class, and that was important. It taught me the value of the quarter inch, the precision, and helped me a lot understand. To be in the position of the participant gave me a very nice perspective for me to become a better teacher. I was a chocolate maker for 25 years and a special event cake baker. And that being said, yes, you do creative things, and it was a very nice way for me to stay artistic, but it was something that people ate. So it was not in a permanent way. Quilting brought me to become an artist that could work with more permanent art piece. But when you're a chocolate maker, you work in a very white space, very clean. You have a awful net on the head. I wanted to create myself a whimsical chocolate factory. So I work with the centerpiece, and every time I create a piece, I like to play with the people that will see it at the end. So my story is a chocolate maker is in front of his chocolate factory, holding a frame showing the chocolate factory. So you have the big element and the small element. But let's go to see all the detail of the paper piecing. In the real frame, this one you have about 1,000 pieces, but okay, I will come back to the paper piecing. I want to include my grandkids that are at that point. They are 3 and 4, and so I draw them the way I can, and I show them the drawing, and I ask Antoine to identify Adélie, Adélie to identify Antoine, and since they agreed that it was them, I was able to include them in the piece. Kids at that age, they're so fun. You just want to play with them and include them in your work. There's a detail here. I'm not good as a to end applique, but I love an applique. So I was looking for a way. I know that this way existed, but I didn't know about it. So I kind of invented my way of creating reverse applique machine that could create detail and be quite precise. And when I do skin, you have a detail of Adélie's face. Skin is not all even, and it's fuzzy. So I like to use flannel fabric with a small pattern. It helps me create the skin effect. I'm coming back to the paper piecing. So in this frame, you have more than 1,000 pieces. And then you have the little 3D effect of the piece. Because if I want to enter a quilt show, there's a new rule now. All quilt needs to be hung solely by a sleeve. Because when I presented Come and Follow Me in Calgary, the big blue 3D quilt, it was accepted by the organization, but the judges said, no, that's not a quilt. It cannot be done, and it will never be done again. So we will change the rule. So, but I create my quilt because I love to create quilts. So yes, it was challenging to receive such a judgment, but it helped me grow and do other. So for this one, if I want to present it to the quilt show, I need it to be hung only with a sleeve. So if you have the presentation and you have the same door here with the chocolate maker in front of the door, the kids are here, but they're also here bigger. You have all the leaves here and there. And in the two border, they needed to be the same. And paper piecing is so precise. I have more than 2,800 pieces in that border. I was very surprised to won first prize at the Quebec Quilt Show in 2010. And get an award at Vermont Quilt Festival too. During that presentation, I'm talking about the challenge I had presented my quilt. What I need to say, and I want to say, is it was never that in Quebec. I was always welcome, even if I was different. I was always welcome, and they accepted the way I was quilting. It was not the same for most of the other quilt show I went to. I'm back to vacation and I'm making baby quilt. I'm making quilt for my classes. I'm quite busy. And I love to be brought back to traditional quilting for the classes, because for me it's like going to the gym. It keeps training me to be precise, to be, and then when I go back to my more personal project, I'm kind of in shape to continue to progress. I've done in my classes, I've done a lot of scrap quilt. This is version 3, and those were very popular classes. I must have given those classes more than 100 times, and people were signing in for 6 months working on this. And this quilt is from all the scrap from Chocolate Factory quilt that you just saw before. So this is the front side. This is the back side. It was very interesting to work with that. We're back enjoying outside and hiking, and I want to create another landscape quilt. And I'm at in Washington State, and we're on the Olympic Peninsula, and I see those waves of mountain and those long forests, and I would like to do something with that. So I start drawing, and I use the quilting pattern to create the mountains. And I want to include a tree, because trees are very important for me. They're kind of part of my spiritual balance. I've seen Mola. I just want to mimic Mola. I don't want to approach it. This is something so special. I don't want to go there, but I love the lines that change the shade and colors. So I want to practice that. And there's a lot of things that I cannot include in my landscape because the size is smaller. So I decide to include all the small size details in the border that will surround the presentation. So I'm working with my the art wall, which is from my small trailer, and I'm working outside. I still have my solar panel, beautiful in the west, so I have all the power I need to work all day. And since my husband is fishing from 8 in the morning till 6, the day is mine, so I can do whatever, how long quilting I want. I'm back home, and I need to assure that this piece can hang from a sleeve, because those are the new rules if I want to enter a quilt show. So I practice that. I create the box, and I do my hanging test. If that test would have failed, it would mean that I was stuck and I couldn't present my piece. So I go to create the tree, which took me a long time to discover how I could create the bark, and that could be like a real tree bark. And then I saw that the bark is something that is folded. So if I was able to fold, I think I have 5 different pieces of fabric in my trunk, and I used the smock technique of the little dress we had when we were kids, but not a regular one, kind of a on acid one. And I created the tree and the leaves, went back to the mountain, all the sea of mountain effect I wanted to create. And I couldn't resist to add a little quilter in the tree. Maybe this is something I will be able to do. I didn't do that yet, but that's part of my bucket list, being able to quilt in a tree. And I added a fly fisherman for sure, because it's a personal piece. You may have seen this piece in Montreal, but it wasn't quite ready. I was rushed between teaching, working, and doing that, making sure that it will fit. And judges were nice with me, but I knew from the judgment that I needed to improve it. So what I did is I went back home, improve it, add some light, because I had about a month before it was going to Vermont Quilt Festival. So it was presented at Quilt Festival with light and really appreciated by public. But the judges made a huge X on my judgment, saying no, not anymore. We don't. We wish you will not come back. But this may seems rough, but I do that because I love to quilt and I love to create. So I went back home and I said, okay, but maybe that's enough for me to try to show something. And you know, when you create, you cannot create like other people create. You create like you are. That's the way I create. So I'm stuck with my technique. But still, there's the Subatic challenge in Vermont the next year. I could resist. I love orange. You see that in my studio. So I invent a story. A little girl in the field come upon a bubble, a special bubble formula, and so I created those bubbles. And when she create the bubble, then they explode and become quilt flying in the wind. This piece was really appreciated by the Subatic owner. She reached me. She wanted to purchase the quilt, but from the judges they say no, Dominique Ehrmann, we won't judge her. So that was the door that, with a name like that, they said no. So but I was happy to create that piece. But that door was closed for me, but then the museum door opened. Katona Museum in 2013, and then there was this huge invitation from the Shelburne Museum in Vermont in 2016, and they gave me carte blanche. They told me, as bring a 10 piece, but you can bring all the piece you want to bring. So that became a very fun adventure. But with the Subatic challenge, I knew that I had confronted the limits of how I could draw. So I knew that I needed to learn to draw if I wanted to go farther in the exploration of my quilting. So it was all the time in the back of my mind. It, it, it was, I saw that it was 10 years since I had created my first pinwheel block. So I said, oh, I'm going to invent a new pinwheel my way. I can do whatever I want. I don't have rules anymore. So I'm like a kid in a toy store. So I'm having fun. So that's my pinwheel block. And when you move the wood handle, it moves like a pinwheel. So it was really appreciated. And there's not many time in museum that you can touch the art piece. So this one you could touch. I wanted to play with wind. I wanted to do a kinetic quilt. I explored and saw that it didn't exist. And I thought that quilt, wind, being outside, that's for me. That is something that I want to try. But when you create something that will move, my plan was to make sure that a quilter could recognize the precision of all my block placement. So when you play with the quilt and the shape of the real square happen, you see all the black and white shape to be very precise. So I had to calculate the difference in between those. I made a paper scale model and I make it play in the wind to assure that I knew where I was going. Stefan was very helpful to create the support of that. So I have artistic side and I have a traditional side. It was shown in Shelburne and it's presently living its way by the sea in Cape Cod. I wanted to play with light because I discovered when I one night I was hanging a quilt to dry and block it vertically because it was too big. I saw the light in the back of the quilt, and it was very interesting to see how it play with the inside of the quilt. You may have seen this quilt. It was presented during a quilt show in Montreal in 2018, and you could play with it. If you push the button, you would see that this is when it's not lit. So this is white, yellow, white, red. But when you lit it, there's a piece of fabric, a green fabric hidden there, and it will play with the light. It's a light box with the light and create the magic of the other color. So this opened a door to play with dynamic quilt that may tell story and move. If you have somebody running and you change the light, it can move. I didn't play with that enough. I will go back and try to explore that a bit more, but it was fun to try. I went back to teaching, and while I'm in Cape Cod, I'm invited. I'm going back to teaching. Sorry, and I'm even invited to go to Vermont to teach. So this is a piece I've created. It's called Balance. It's about all women I know that are that go on their day every day, even if it's a good day or a bad day. They do all the chores, all the obligation they have, and they do it again. So that's about that. And there's Geisha, which is another class. It's a quilt that I did 3 times, the same pattern, different look, and it was interesting to demonstrate that even though you have a log cabin or a different way of log cabin, and this is a panel, so the panel becomes an applique, but it's still a panel here. And it was fun to practice and teach that technique that may seems like a bit of magic, but it's it's um, it's only how to do it that will work, and it was interesting.
I guess
I
Dominique,
Yep.
that the Vermont Quilt Festival was starting to know you a bit better. After refusing your quilt, then they decided to ask you to teach. Strange, eh?
Yeah, but I think judging is from the judge, and then the public asks for my classes. So I think that's the
That's
way it happens.
yeah,
So
that's it.
yeah.
I guess the
And
public was advanced, was ahead of the judging people, eh?
uh,
Maybe we'll
I
see.
won't comment.
Yeah, we'll see.
I continued to teach, and then I began to give a summer camp for my classes participant. It was their idea at the beginning. Could we spend more time together during summertime? And and that was a fantastic experience. We did that 5 years in a row. It was in Saint-Joseph-du-Lac in Apple Grove, in an ancient maison house from the Club des Fermières Saint-Joseph-du-Lac. And it was such a human experience. And the participants, they were good. I was giving them only measurement. They had to prepare their fabric, a color chart, and they didn't know at all what they would do during the week. And the thrill was who was the first who discovered the pattern of the quilt that we had made all the week. It had to stop because of COVID, and then when it was okay to reopen, I was the one who wasn't free enough to go back to that. But maybe one day, you never know. After Shelburne, I feel the Hall in Cape Cod curator visit Shelburne and want to invite me to. It was a big show. It was an important show, and it was a solo show like at Shelburne. Part of the invitation was a commission work to do their the beautiful Highfield Hall house and to recreate it for the house. So that's what I did. It made me explore something that was a bit 3D, but and I started to use wood, like my framing is real wood from a barn, 100 years barn, so very ancient wood. But then all the addition of the 3D leaves. So it helped me to improve my drawing, but still I was not there. There was part of my drawing that I wanted to improve. The quilt show at Cape Cod was a success, and the creator at the was very nice, and she invited me to stay at her home, like many quilters do when we have those invitation. And one morning she's asking me, what's next, Dominique? What do you want to do next? And that's a question nobody should ask me, because it gives firework in my brain. So I said, I wish to do a steampunk piece, a large one. I would like to show, and that's not humble, but I wanted to show people that I had made progress during the 10 years. And the blue quilt, which was the quilt I was known for, that I could do something else. So she said that no way, that's impossible. She told me that she was planning a steampunk show in 2019. We were in 2017, and she was missing a large piece to complete her exhibit. So she said, "Do you want to create the large piece?" And I said, "Yes." I'm quite innocent, okay, but I work with emotion, and that's the way I got my energy. So I had to be serious about drawing. So we were on vacation. I spent the 2 months of our vacation drawing every morning, practicing drawing. I bought a book. I'm very bad in the class. I'm very bad as a student. So I bought a book, and I practice how to draw, how to learn how to use the shadow, how to use the shape. And I came up with my story. Adventurer with her three friends are, you'll see a bit later with the piece I'm going to show you, is kind of stuck in the tradition, wants to explore more in non-traditional, and she's at a turning point. So I brought back my maquette to Cape Cod the 2 months later when we were closing, and the proposition was approved. So I went back home and we enlarged at the real scale what I was planning to do, which is a 16-foot 180 installation, 7.5 feet high and about 5 feet wide. So this maquette stayed in our living room for 2 years. That's the time it took me to create it. Even at Christmas time, all my family was squished in a part of the living room because all the place was there for the installation. I needed some room in my workshop, so I couldn't have the maquette and my work in the workshop. But now I'm organized. I'm more experienced. I've done a lot of quilting. I've 10 years into quilting, 12 years into quilting. So I know that I need a color chart. And on our vacation, I come upon a shop in Calgary that has the whole collection of grunge by Moda. And grunge is dirty, is city, is real steampunk. So with the 100 choice I had, I could precisely choose all element I wanted. That was a very good thing that happened. It helped me. And then I started drawing the patterns and the element and the colors. I wanted my quilt, because there's a quilt in my story, to be very, very traditional. So paper piecing is something very traditional. I used this technique to create the quilt. I discovered chicken wire, which is wonderful if you want to have a sculptural aspect to quilting, because you can do your quilt. You can quilt it on one side and then have the backing, and then you put everything together. by hand. So it's weeks of work by hand to bring a quilt and to become a sculptor. I love to go in hardware store. That's where I'm the most inspired. So I I find all metal elements, and I was even able to add screw to my work, and that was a very interesting way. And metal tubing and car trunk felt, industrial felt, which is a piece of material that I just love to work with. It sews very nicely by hand, but even by machine, and give nice structure to the elements. I work with my, I'm going to take some water. I start working on my character, the raven, the fox. The raven will be carrying the thread. The fox is carrying the fabric. And to create the fox fur, I use batik that I shredded and make sure that it was fraying, and some faux fur. And I build it like you build a roof by scaling it. It was an interesting practice. I created the antelope, which is carrying the sewing machine. And even the sewing machine, I made it. I cut foam and then I compress it to assure that I was able to create a small vintage sewing machine. There's a vortex in my story, and the vortex mimicked the border of the quilt. So I use the same fabric, the same color, but I squish my pattern because to show the vortex effect of the piece. There's an adventurer in my story, and I added many details, and she's carrying the quilt, and she's all equipped with sewing material and tools, and she's got the aviator glasses. And to create the hair, I have about 5 different fibers. You have thread with some light, some metal pieces. You have a print, and you have some very sheer fabric. The face is felt needle, one felt needle point felting, and I was coached by my daughter, which is a felt artist. Without her, I wouldn't have been able to go up to that distance. So this
And
is, wait,
to make that adventurer, actually, she's you, right?
that's not modest to say, but she's not far from me, for sure. It's
Oh, you mean
me in my brain. It's not me in life,
this?
but it's me in my
This
head.
is
That's
yeah. This is your parcours from traditional to
yeah, exactly.
right.
So if you go to the quilt, I added a bit of drama. So you have the quilt, very traditional, that is kind of stuck in the tradition, but want to explore. So breaks her chain, enter the time machine, and the time machine move. The gear, they move. If you move the sewing machine, the gear will move. Pass time, and then go out from the vortex, being free to do whatever she wants to do. And this piece was well received, and this piece is presently at New England Quilt Museum. So if you have the chance to participate at the wonderful trip Courtepointe, Quebec is making April 13 and 14, you will see this piece because it's still there. What I didn't know about Time to Break Free. Time to Break Free was really cri du cœur, something I wish to say that, you know, I can do something else than come and follow me, the Boulou quilt. It was like a bottle to the sea. And it worked because a famous mathematician from Duke University in North Carolina was on a travel trip, and she saw Time to Break Free in Cape Cod. and then she reached me to help her create Mathemalchemy. Mathemalchemy is a crazy project. This is Ingrid and I at the end of the project. We never should have met. Okay, Ingrid is the famous mathematician. She just won the Jerusalem Wolf Award, which is the Nobel Prize in mathematics, which is the highest prize award you can receive. She's the first woman in the world to have received it last month. She's a UNESCO award when she won all the award, but she wanted to. Her goal is that everybody will love mathematics, and that's a big goal to achieve. So she reached me to create a whimsical piece that would show the love of math. So for 2 months, we spoke every week, and I would spend 2 hours every day reading all the books she sent me and created the first maquette to bring to Denver. We're going to the international mathematic meeting and asking people to collaborate to that crazy project. We thought we could reach 8 people. That night we reached 18, and then we became 24. So I was the art director, designer, and helping creator on that project. It was supposed to be a 9-month project, and we were supposed to start March 19, 2020. Then COVID happened. I thought it was finished, but it was not knowing Ingrid. We transformed everything on Zoom, and we worked on creating first the maquette. So that's my most achieved maquette I ever made. And it was from the brain of a 24 PhD mathematician. I'm a self-taught. They're all PhDs. But we find a way to communicate, and we said that we would, because it was COVID, we were locked down, we would take the time it takes. So that's the second, it's a 360 piece. And from that maquette in Quebec, I was able to guide and teach those 24 people that were spread out all over United States. We Zoom every week. I was meeting 5 times a week for different subgroup. I had to find a way to create a color chart that they would be able to follow, because mathematicians, they don't know anything about color chart. That's not how their brain are organized. So I went to chip card and numbers, and then when we were talking about red, it was red 322BD, and then everybody understood, and I was able to help them, guide them to work on something that would be precise. There was beading, there was ceramic, quilting, welding. I was most involved with the cryptography quilt, which was something that I didn't know about before starting, but 2 mathematicians guided me, and then I created the model, and we went back and forth like that on Zoom. Some detail of the quilt. Even we discovered that we had 26 pieces of fabric in our collection. So that became a code, and the code became the binding. So I have the name of all the participants of that group hidden in the binding. But that was only one side. I had to create the sculpture like we saw in Time to Break Free with the chicken wire. So one side was cryptography. The other side was honoring 5 mathematicians that were women in math. But instead of honoring them for all the serious work they've done and all the very special thing they achieve, we honor them through their doodles, how they add doodles to their formula. We thought it was interesting to see. I participated in creating a cavalcade of pages. All mathematicians brought their formula pages the way they wanted to express math. We met for 3 weeks, and then everything had to be brought together. We shipped everything to Duke in North Carolina, and I was directing all those people. It was a crazy time, but it was a fantastic time. And since we had met for the last 2 years, we respect and knew each other. So we were able to work very seriously at a high pace and be able to do that. There was origami, there's knitting, crochet, metal welding, wood. There's all kind of skill in that. This is the, I'm giving you a tour of the installation. It's a huge one, 20 feet by 10 and a half by in height, and about 10 feet wide. And each detail, each 2 inches you look, you will discover something about math. Math for children, math for more advanced, and up to very scientific math. This piece was presented at the National Academy of Science in, it began its travel tour there. It's in Washington. And I was there where the Congress happened, and all the high skilled scientific come for a year for their annual meeting, and they were touched. They were laughing. They were saying, oh, they went up to that. They just got it. And it was interesting because I was afraid that using the whimsical angle would have prevent us to be taken seriously. But the goal from Ingrid, this is Ingrid's brain working. She said, we are luring them like bees and flowers. The flowers need to be very nice so the bees will come and then create pollinize everything. So that's the way the approach we took. There's a bakery with baker cooking pie the mat, but pie the cookies. So there's always back and forth little joke, inside joke and it's the Mandelbrot that we wanted to explore. Mandelbrot is abstract math, but it's also a pastry. So there was always things like that going on. It was very interesting. Chipmunks working on the composite number and prime numbers, but with acorns. Sieve math at prime numbers, but on a higher level. In the background, you have a basalt wall. Basalt is a geometry in nature, but it's also how you can explain a math concept. So I learned so much. It was like, for me, like going to university for 3 years. So, and there's welding. We have a lighthouse with a sphere projection and a dodecahedron that showed the light of the lighthouse. It was made by one of the artists of our group. And the projection was made by Henry Segerman, which is a renowned mathematician who explore spherical projection showing very flat angle. You don't lose any angle even though the sphere is round. The projection will stay with 90-degree angles. We have a Sierpinski triangle that is a kite. So this piece was, like I said, was presented at the National Academy of Science. And normally when the National Academy of Science present a piece, they want to keep one for their permanent exhibition. But with Time to Break Free, with Madame Alchemy, it was not possible because it's such a huge installation. So they asked me to do something that I will talk to you about. So this is our group, the 24. I think it was it was a human experience more than anything. I've been lucky to have a few trips to the moon in my life, but Madame Alchemy was a trip to Mars. It was very special. March 2023, I'm asked to do a piece that will be inspired by Madame Alchemy, but it needs to be 30 inches by 40 inches and needs to hang on a wall. So I need to bring a 360 installation into a small mural. So I start thinking, and it took me 4 months to explore how to do that and be able to give tribute to the installation, give tribute to the 24 collaborator. So I asked if I could do a bas-relief, which was giving me a 3D effect, and I needed that. And then the question happened, okay, which side of the quilt will I show? It's a 360 installation and I have only a mural to show. So I thought of a coat of arm. I would do a coat of arm of Mathemalchemy family. A coat of arm has a very nice code. You can have, there's no scale that you need to respect. You can have a small house and you have like a small castle and big knights. You can have small horses and big dragon. It doesn't mind. It's a code that is respected since the beginning of time. So I use that. It permit me to balance two sides, but show the 360 that was all over the installation. So this is my paper maquette that I presented to the National Academy of Science. It was accepted. And then I began to work on the real thing. This is Fibonacci, the mathematical way. So it's called the Harris spiral that I really love. And I use it to be the foundation of my piece. And I invented on that one too. I created my own drawing. I find a way to print all my drawing on fabric. Then I was free to do whatever I want to the size I wanted to. And I start to create all the elements. There's more than 500 elements in this small piece. A lot of detail. The quilt, I started with those two quilts because it was a huge challenge to be precise and small. It's smaller than a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. And you have all those details that you need to show. I wanted to show the collaboration. So that's what I did. You have 24 silhouette of the member of the group, thinking it changing. They have a very special way to express, and they were very passionate about what they were saying. So the conversation every week was very, very special, and I want to show that. It's all mounted on a metal grid, and I can use pins, so I use bobby pins to install everything. And I mounted them one by one, again vertical, to assure that I was good in my angle. Stefan is always there to find a way to help me and install that. I use a cork fabric for the background and then wood. It's all mounted on wood. And for the silhouette that are black in the installation, for the mathematician, for me, they're very important. I designed them all, and they're the human part that is inviting non-mathematician to the installation to be interested in the installation. For the mathematician, they're ghosts. They don't exist because they're from the past. The only thing that exists is the math. So when I've decided to add two mathematicians, two little girls and two teenagers, I needed to make sure that they appear ghostly. So they used my drawing, and it was three laser cutting, and then I send it to create a opalescent look. And that's the piece. It's just been sent to Washington, where it will appear and be part of their permanent collection April, at the end of April, to be shown to all the scientists that see the work last year when the installation Mathemalchemy was installed.
And the
So
bobby pins are gone, right, Dominique? No more bobby pins in there.
there are no bobby pins. Everything is sewn. Everything is sewn to the grid. So what I want to tell you at the end is, don't be afraid to dream. You never know where it will take. I don't take myself seriously. I take my work seriously. But don't be afraid to dream. It's a fantastic boat to travel in different galaxy that you wouldn't believe you can reach. Thank you.
Well, let's put it this way.
You're
Louise, you
muted,
just mute
Louise.
yourself.
All right, I forgot about the unmuting. I was just saying to Dominique that she certainly has traveled a lot since her first little quilt there. This is amazing, Dominique, really. And I want to say thank you for being there for us this morning. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
And also for the people who are coming to New England Quilt Museum, well, you've just got an insight to Dominique's big piece. That would be such a pleasure to see. Really, I'm surprised. I'm amazed, and I wonder how the judge would feel today. You remember that judge that said, "We don't want to see you anymore." How she feel if she
I'm not
saw these
sure.
pieces?
I'm not sure because I understand their angle. Those pieces are complex to put together, and
Yeah,
they need to count on volunteer to install them, even though
yeah,
I offer to install all the time. And I think they are scared that it will be exploding, and that's going to be too tricky to
judge.
install and judge.
And to judge. That's right. But I mean, and I understand them too. I understand very well. But I hope they've seen what you have, where you are today in that meeting, where this has brought you. There, yes, they refused your piece, but look, it's probably pushed you even more. Maybe could that be?
It was a gift. It was a gift because it helped me to uh, decide to become myself and create my own way. But I need to say that without the museum who gave me freedom, it
Yes, the children.
it could have been a bit tricky at some years to try to find a way to do my work. I could have done my work only for me. I wanted
It
to
could have put
show it to people, so that was the trick.
Yeah, and it could have put you down seriously too. It could have been serious enough for you to say, "I'm not doing this anymore," and just forget about it. You were good to be able to get over this and just keep on going. Really,
But yes, but since I always did that at the beginning for me because it was important for me, I think I was able to come back to say I'm okay, I can do it. I know sometimes it was a bit rough. It was a bit difficult to swallow, but those are good life lessons for me. So
you're very positive. Let's put it this way. And I'm looking at some of these pieces. I mean, you needed to have guts to be able to get, to keep on going like this. I mean, it takes nerves.
yes, but it was a good way. I have a lot of energy. It was a very good way to use that energy. There's another thing. I have a good life companion. Stefan is
Yes.
always there to back me, help me to create the structure I invent and accept that crazy thing. And even now, we are traveling with Matam Alchemy, and we became the official installer of that. So we travel to many cities, we go install, we go deinstall, because we have developed a skill of installer that we didn't know we could have. So that brought us something very interesting in life.
It's almost like quilter, sculptor, installer, engineer. There's a bit of everything in you there.
Absolutely, yes. But that makes for days who are not dull at all.
For sure. No, I have no doubt about that one. Thank you very much, Dominique, for being there for us this morning. This is really, really great. For the people who are online right now, you've probably seen it on our website right now because this is for International Quilting Day. There are a couple of quilt shops that are giving you rebates. I just want to let you know about that. I've seen Mad Moody, I think Fabricville, Penelope, a few of them are there. So you might be interested in visiting them to get some rebates, some good prices. Maybe start one of Dominique's quilts, miniature quilts or something like that. Anyways, we've had people this morning asking Dominique if she was going to give classes again. Dominique answered that she's far too busy right now. I think she wants to relax, right, Dominique?
I
Somehow.
would like, but after 5 years of responding to offers, I would like to see where I can go on my own. So I would like to have a year to explore. And that's why for the moment I say maybe next year. But I'm not saying no, I'm just saying maybe.
You're saying that you don't have another one on the table right now? I'd be surprised. There must be something else going on.
Oh, yes, I just don't want to talk about it yet. Absolutely.
That's right.
There's a lot of things. No worry.
You're not, yeah, you're not just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, I'm sure.
No.
No way. All right. So, ladies, if you are part of our trip to the New England Quilt Museum, you'll be able to see Dominique's piece. And if you're not, I'm telling you right away, if you want to join us, there are only 5 seats left on that bus. So I would say fill in that form fast if you want to join us because there are a few places left. And we are going, that is definite. We are going to the museum April 13, 14, and I hope you'll be with us. Can I say thank you, Dominique, once again.
Bye-bye,
And
everybody. Thank you to have spent a part of the Saturday morning with us. Thank you.
bye. And also just one last thing, I want to remind everybody online this morning that there are 2 other webinars coming. One with Helen Schiffer, and there's another one also with Clara Yu on colors coming up. So you might want to check those up too when time comes for you to join us. So the very best to all of you. It's not that bad of a day, actually. I think the sun might come out. So have fun, enjoy, and I hope we see you again soon. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.